December 1944. The Ardennes Forest, Belgium. Visibility, poor. The deep, muffled stillness of a continental winter is the only sound. It is a silence so profound it seems to absorb all light and hope. But beneath this pristine blanket of snow, the Western Front is bleeding. The massive German offensive, later known as the Battle of the Bulge, has fractured the thin American lines, turning a quiet sector into a vortex of cold steel and frozen fear. This is where Sergeant Elias Vance makes his living. A sharpshooter of the 101st Airborne, Elias is a specialist in stillness, a ghost among the pines. For him, the war is a series of singular equations: wind velocity, bullet drop, breathing control, and the final, absolute solution. His weapon, a modified M1990-3A4 Springfield, is an extension of his will. But tonight, the psychological pressure is heavier than the sub-zero air. The American withdrawal is chaotic. The supply lines are choked, and the enemy, buoyed by the desperation of their last great gamble, is everywhere. The tactical doctrine for a sniper like Vance is simple: isolate, eliminate, and melt away. Yet, survival demands more than just marksmanship. It demands intuition. The deep roar of heavy armor tracks miles away, the distant rhythmic cough of German mortars, the subtle crunch of snow that is not the wind. These are the details Elias translates into life or death. His scope is his only window to the world, a circular frame that separates the hunter from the hunted, and the living from the soon-to-be forgotten. Elias is positioned overlooking a crucial, snow-choked crossroads, a tactical artery that both sides desperately need. He has been here for 36 hours, fueled by lukewarm coffee from his thermos, and the primal need to watch his 6 o'clock. His log records 3 confirmed eliminations, all German reconnaissance scouts who strayed too close, each shot a whisper in the overwhelming roar of the battle. The irony of this conflict, often overlooked by historians focusing only on grand strategy, is the unbearable loneliness of the individuals involved. While divisions clash in vast, terrible movements, Elias is an island of absolute solitude. His mission is not to conquer ground, but to impose terror, to force the enemy to look over their shoulder, to paralyze movement with the certainty of an invisible, inevitable threat. But then the pattern shifts. It is just before dawn, the darkest hour, when the temperature hits its nadir. Through the swirling flurries of snow, Elias detects a disturbance. Not a patrol, nor an armored vehicle, but a faint smudge of movement near a derelict farmhouse, half buried in the drifts. It is a slow, agonizing crawl, inconsistent with military training, almost desperate. Initially, he dismisses it as a civilian caught in the crossfire, or perhaps a local farmer's stray animal, but the rigid discipline of his craft demands verification. He adjusts the focus on his scope. What the lens reveals is a figure huddled in the skeletal shadow of the ruins. The silhouette is small, not the broad, helmeted shape of an infantryman. As the eastern sky begins to leak a cold, pale light, the details resolve. A woman. Clothed in what appears to be a heavy but now shredded coat, she is nearly indistinguishable from the frozen earth, exhibiting the unmistakable signs of acute hypothermia, shivering violently, struggling to move limbs that are already surrendering to the cold. This is the contradiction that tears at Elias's professional soul. The immediate rational military response is to ignore the distraction or, worse, to recognize her as a potential enemy decoy, a tactical trap designed to pull a sharpshooter from concealment. The enemy, at this stage of the war, was notorious for using deception. What they did not yet understand was that this isolated moment, this single freezing figure, was not a distraction, but the nexus of a historical collision. The human element, the thing the grand strategists so often overlook, was about to rewrite his war. The rulebook, the training, the cold logic of survival, all demand retreat. But the primal, undeniable instinct of a man witnessing suffering trumps the soldier's code. The woman is collapsing. In 5 minutes, 10 at most, the cold will claim her. Elias Vance, the ghost of the Ardennes, makes a choice that will ripple through the history books. He breaks cover. The irony is acute. A man trained to kill from a distance of hundreds of meters is now risking everything to save a single life only 20 meters away, in the very heart of the enemy's spearhead. He knows that his movement is a betrayal of his profession and a catastrophic tactical risk. Yet the deep thrumming of his own heartbeat is suddenly louder than the distant artillery. He grips his rifle, not as a weapon of death but as a lifeline, and begins his terrifying slow crawl toward the farmhouse. The simple, unadorned fact is that the war had become so ugly, so relentlessly focused on destruction, that an act of mercy had become the greatest act of rebellion. If you are enjoying this dive into the rarely explored human side of World War II's strategic battles, consider hitting the subscribe button below. Your support allows us to continue bringing these meticulously researched and dramatically narrated stories to light. Now, let's see what Elias finds beneath the ice. Elias reaches the woman in a fever of calculated urgency, his senses screaming at him to remain hyper-vigilant. Every shadow is a potential threat. Every snap of a branch is the sound of his own execution. He rolls the woman onto her side, his gloved hand immediately registering the deathly cold of her skin. She is semi-conscious, mumbling something incoherent in French, her breathing shallow and ragged. The first thing he notices, besides the uniform blue of her lips, is the small tattered medical bag clutched against her chest. It is a clear sign. This is no ordinary civilian. She is a medical professional. He quickly assesses her condition. Frostbite beginning on her extremities, nearing the point of no return. He has minutes, not hours. His training takes over. Dragging her back to his hidden position is impossible. The trail would be too obvious. He must move her to the farmhouse cellar, a riskier but more immediate shelter. He scoops her up, surprised by her lightness, a painful testament to the scarcity of food in this ravaged land. Her head lolls against his shoulder, and as he glances down, he sees her eyes open slightly. They are a deep, startling blue, wide with a mixture of fear and profound exhaustion. He manages to pull her into the relative darkness and insulation of the farmhouse root cellar. It stinks of damp earth and decay, but it is shielded from the wind. He rips the blanket of insulating foil from his own emergency kit, sacrificing his warmth for hers, and wraps it around her. He uses a small, carefully hoarded ration of morphine to ease the pain that must be radiating through her frozen limbs. As she slowly begins to stabilize, the woman manages to articulate her name, Anya Petrov. Her accent is Eastern European, perhaps Russian, but the French she used earlier complicates the picture. Her papers, when Elias cautiously checks her coat pockets for identification, are even more confusing. They are French Red Cross documents, identifying her as a nurse operating near the Belgian border. But a critical detail jumps out at Elias. The photographs used for the ID are poorly substituted, and the stamps are smudged. The documentation, while official-looking, feels deeply inauthentic. This is the point where the initial act of heroism transforms into a profound, terrifying risk. Elias is sheltering a potential spy, a woman whose true allegiance is completely unknown, in the heart of a frozen battleground. In the context of the Ardennes, where German commandos in stolen American uniforms were actively sowing chaos, the consequences of this decision are nothing short of treason. The irony deepens. He saved her life, but now his life depends on her being who she claims to be. The strategic landscape is equally fraught. While Elias and Anya are hiding, the German advance, driven by Hitler's desperate will, continues to push west. The roads they hide near are soon to be a major conduit for German tank divisions, a logistical artery feeding the Nazi offensive. Elias, a lone sniper, is now trapped not just between two armies, but between his moral duty and his military oath. He has to question her, but gently. He needs truth. Yet the truth could be a death sentence for them both. Anya, he whispers, his voice strained from lack of use. What happened? Where were you going? Her reply is fragmented. A tale of a field hospital overrun, of fleeing during the night with only her bag, of 2 days spent in the open. It is a believable story. Hundreds of medical personnel faced similar fates. But then she adds a chilling detail. her eyes darting away from his. The Germans. They were looking for someone specific. Not just equipment. Someone. The mystery solidifies. Anya Petrov is not merely a refugee. She is a fugitive. The fear in her eyes is not the generalized terror of the civilian caught in the conflict, but the targeted, personal dread of the hunted. Elias notes the surgical precision with which she had treated a deep gash on her own arm. The clear, expert hands of a seasoned nurse, contradicting the idea of a simple disguise. He finds a small, intricately carved wooden figure in her medical bag, a peasant woman, beautifully detailed, unlike anything he has ever seen. It's an unusual possession for a fleeing nurse. The moment he makes a decision to trust her, or at least to temporarily suspend judgment, is when she reaches out a trembling hand and touches his face, pulling his gaze back to hers. "Thank you," she says, her English suddenly clear, sharp, and without an accent. "I owe you everything, Sergeant Vance. But you have to move. They will be here soon, and when they find me, they will not care that you are an American." This sudden switch to perfect English, coupled with a tactical warning, confirms his deepest suspicion. This woman is far more dangerous and far more connected than a simple Red Cross nurse. She knows his rank, yet he never told her his name. The truth, Elias realizes, is buried deeper than the snow. The immediate danger, however, is not a philosophical one. It is a concrete, mechanical threat. A deep rumble begins to grow outside, vibrating through the cold stone of the cellar. The sound is unmistakable, a grinding, heavy noise that signifies the arrival of the spearhead. German panzer tanks. The hunter has become the cornered prey. The great irony of their meeting is that in seeking temporary sanctuary from the cold, they have walked directly into the path of the entire German offensive. The silence is broken, and their adventure has truly begun. The cellar door rattles as the massive weight of a Panzerkampfwagen IV Ausf. J rumbles directly overhead. The floor above groans under the 25-ton strain. Dust and loose debris rain down on Elias and Anya. The proximity is terrifying, reducing the vastness of the war to the confines of a 7-foot square space. Elias's tactical mind immediately calculates the odds. 0. An M1903A4 rifle is useless against the thick, sloped armor of the German tank. Their survival depends entirely on silence and obscurity. He presses his finger to his lips, but Anya is already ahead of him, her fear replaced by a startling, icy composure. She moves with a grace that betrays her recent near-death state, clearing space around them. The noise above is now a cacophony of engines, guttural German commands, and the metallic clang of tracked vehicles positioning themselves. The crossroads is functioning as a crucial staging point. They are surrounded by the enemy, mere feet away from discovery. As they wait, breathing shallowly, Anya pulls the small wooden carving from her bag. She begins to turn it, and Elias notices a faint, nearly invisible seam. The head of the figurine unscrews, revealing not a message, but a tightly rolled, extremely small piece of microphotographic film. "What is that?" Elias whispers, his military curiosity overwhelming his caution. Anya looks at him, her intense blue eyes now blazing with determination. "It is the reason I am freezing in your American care, Sergeant Vance. It is the reason they are looking for me." She reveals that she is not a French Red Cross nurse, but Anya Petrova, a highly trained operative from the Soviet GRU, Main Intelligence Directorate. Her cover story, the French papers, the Eastern European accent, all were carefully constructed layers. Her mission was to infiltrate the perimeter of the Heer, German army, in the east, and carry a specific piece of intelligence to a rendezvous point in Belgium. The intelligence, she explains, is not military data, but technical. During the height of the Soviet counteroffensive, the GRU discovered documents related to the advanced German research program for guided missiles, the V2 rocket program. But this film is not about the rockets themselves. It is about the fuel control systems and guidance frequencies, specifically designed to withstand jamming by Allied electronic warfare. It is the key to creating a reliable countermeasure that could neutralize the terrifying V2 threat before it reaches London, potentially saving thousands of lives and preventing a major psychological victory for Hitler. The irony is profound. Elias, the American sniper focused on the tactical destruction of a single infantryman, has stumbled upon the strategic secret that could shift the entire balance of the war, not on the ground, but in the air. The vast battle raging overhead is secondary to this tiny piece of film in his hand. Suddenly, the floorboards above them creak, not under the weight of a tank, but under the light, measured step of a man. The sound stops directly over the cellar hatch. Elias grabs his knife, his body tensing for an impossible fight. A calm, distinct voice speaks in flawless English, but with a sharp German cadence. "Sergeant Vance, the snow is melting, and your tracks are showing, Americana. We know you are in there, and we know who you are hiding." The chilling revelation is that the Germans have not just stumbled upon them, they have been tracking them. This is not a random patrol. This is a deliberate, targeted pursuit. The man above is a specialist, an Abwehr counterintelligence officer, likely the someone specific Anya spoke of. Anya's face drains of color. "That is Colonel Kessel. They broke my cipher. They knew the rendezvous point was compromised, and they waited." Kessel continues, his voice devoid of emotion, a cold surgical instrument. "The information is of no use to you now. It is technically complex, designed to be useless outside our engineering corps. Surrender, and we can discuss a transfer to a warmer POW camp. Stay, and you will freeze, or worse, be crushed by a Panzerspeiwagen that is even now positioning itself directly over your pathetic little hole." The strategic stakes are now agonizingly clear. Elias has to protect a Soviet spy, his ideological enemy, carrying a secret that is vital to his country. He is an American soldier, trapped by German counterintelligence, all because of an act of basic humanity. The love story, the adventure, the mystery, it all hinges on the next 10 seconds. Elias looks at Anya. She doesn't hesitate. She takes the film from his hand, holds it to her mouth, and chews it, destroying the physical evidence. It is a sacrifice, but a meaningless one. "It is too late for that," she says, her voice a low, fierce whisper. "I memorized the crucial sequence. They can have the film, but not the code. Now, we fight the Amerikaner way." Elias, seeing the pure, cold resolve in her eyes, nods. He is no longer fighting for the stars and stripes alone. He is fighting for a deeper, more complicated cause. He aims his Springfield at the wooden floor above the hatch, the only place where the boards are slightly rotted, and prepares to take a shot that could start an avalanche of German fury. Elias does not wait for Kessel to act. He fires the M1903A4 through the weak point in the floorboards. The shot, deafening in the cellar's confines, is immediately followed by a solid thud and a scream cut short. Kessel, the Abwehr officer, is down. This singular, desperate act shatters the tactical stalemate. The immediate response from the German soldiers above is a storm of automatic fire that shreds the wooden beams and sends splintered fragments everywhere. The entrance to the cellar is now a dangerous funnel. "We have to get out now," Elias shouts over the chaos. "They'll throw grenades." Anya, despite her frozen condition, is already moving, pointing to a small, nearly hidden vertical crawl space behind a stack of rotten potatoes. "A drainage channel. It leads out to the back field, past the motor pool." They squeeze through the narrow, freezing passage, a desperate, scraping journey through mud and ice. They emerge not into the open field, but directly into the German staging area. They are meters away from dozens of German soldiers, vehicles idling, men huddled around fires trying to escape the bitter cold. The great strategic irony of their situation is that the sheer scale of the German deployment is now their best camouflage. Surrounded by the enemy, they appear less suspicious than if they were fleeing across an open field. They blend into the chaos of the massive movement, a human needle lost in a metallic haystack. Elias's training as a sniper, mastery of movement, of shadow, of blending into the background, is now put to its ultimate test. He notices that Anya, the supposed GRU agent, moves with an unsettling familiarity among the German forces. She knows their patrol patterns, their communication signs, even the subtle details of their uniforms. "How do you know this?" he asks, breathless. as they slip past a massive Opel Blitz truck. Anya replies, without looking at him.
The GRU's operation was built on layers of deception. My initial assignment was to work in a field hospital close to the German command. I was not just a nurse, Sergeant Vance. I was embedded. The reality of her background is starkly revealed. Anya is not just a spy. She is a deep cover operative, a phantom who lived among the enemy, enduring the ultimate psychological isolation.
Her French papers, the quick switch in accents, the knowledge of medical protocol, it all supports the terrifying truth that she is a master of identity theft. But the most critical piece of intelligence is what she reveals next: the true location of the GRU rendezvous. The meeting was not in a civilian area. It was at the old abandoned Bastogne radar station. It's now being used as an improvised forward command post by a unit of the 101st Airborne. The revelation hits Elias with the force of a gut punch. Bastogne, the very sector currently under siege by German forces, the place where his own division is now fighting for its life. The irony is excruciating. The safe haven for the Soviet agent is the very epicenter of the American defense, a fortress surrounded by the enemy. Suddenly, a German Feldwebel, Sergeant Major, bulky in his winter greatcoat, spots them. Elias is in the wrong uniform, and Anya looks utterly out of place. The Feldwebel shouts a challenge in sharp German. Elias shoves Anya behind a pile of winter supplies and raises his Springfield. But before he can even sight the enemy, a flash of action from Anya stops him. She reaches into her coat, pulls out a tiny, high-caliber German Walther P38 pistol, which she clearly acquired during her time embedded, and fires twice. The two quick, clean shots silence the Feldwebel before he can even finish his sentence. The unexpected, cold-blooded efficiency of the kill is not the action of a terrified nurse. It is the calculated strike of a trained assassin. Elias stares at her, his initial admiration now mixed with a heavy dose of apprehension. He realizes that the person he saved from the snow is exponentially more dangerous than any enemy he has ever faced through his rifle scope. "Come on, Sergeant," she says, already moving toward the tree line, not even glancing at the body. "We have the code, and they have the entire German army. We need a path through the enemy lines." The path, they both realize, must now be cut not just by stealth, but by sheer audacity. Elias, the solitary hunter, is forced to rely on the terrifying capabilities of the woman who is his ideological opposite, yet his only hope. Their adventure is no longer an escape. It is a desperate race to deliver a secret that must pass through the crucible of the siege of Bastogne. The fate of London and their own now depends on two people, a sniper and a spy, running headlong into the most intense battle of the American experience in the war. The trek toward Bastogne is a nightmare condensed into kilometers. They move exclusively at night, navigating frozen forests and fields, listening to the unending, terrifying symphony of the siege. The rhythmic, earth-shaking impact of the German heavy artillery, the high-pitched screams of the Nebelwerfer rockets, the screaming Mimis, and the desperate return fire of the encircled Americans. Elias, the specialist in observation, starts to see the subtle, devastating effects of the siege. The lack of supply drops is evident in the exhausted faces of the retreating American patrols they manage to avoid. The cold has become a more effective killer than any German weapon. Ammunition is scarce, morale is hanging by a thread, and yet the defense is holding, a testament to the fierce, unforgiving spirit of the American paratroopers. Their primary obstacle is the constant moving German cordon around the city. They have to pass through a heavily entrenched enemy line known for its brutal efficiency. Anya reveals another element of her plan, one built on her deep knowledge of German military psychology. "They are predictable in their discipline," she explains. "They will have a designated safe zone for the movement of high-value non-combatants. They're wounded, perhaps, or high-ranking officers. That zone will be less guarded because they rely on their own internal discipline, not external force." They identify a narrow ravine used to transport German casualties back from the front. It is a calculated risk. Move near the wounded, who are less threatening, but are also closely attended by medical staff and armed guards. As they move through the ravine, they encounter a small German patrol escorting 2 stretchers. Elias prepares his rifle, but Anya stops him, her hand gripping his arm with surprising strength. "No, I go first." In an astonishing display of nerve, Anya, using the full confidence of her former deep-cover persona, steps directly into the path of the patrol. She speaks rapidly, harshly, in fluent, commanding German, claiming to be a specialist nurse from a major Berlin hospital sent to evaluate the frontline trauma protocol. She waves her forged French Red Cross papers, knowing the Germans would view the French service as politically neutral and non-threatening. The German guard hesitates, confused by the sudden appearance of a small, intense woman in the middle of a battle zone. The conversation is a tightrope walk of historical irony. Anya is chastising the German soldiers for their inefficiency and failure to follow field triage protocol, using technical medical jargon to overwhelm their simple military training. She is essentially lecturing her hunters on how to do their jobs better, and they are falling for it. The moment of truth arrives when one of the stretcher bearers, a young Obergefreiter with a shattered arm, looks at Anya and whispers in Russian, thinking she is a Russian nurse captured on the Eastern Front. "Are you with the Red Army? The Americans are coming." The German officer's eyes snap to the young soldier. The slip of the tongue is fatal. The officer instantly realizes the nurse's cover is a lie. The silence is absolute, broken only by the distant thunder of howitzers. Anya doesn't hesitate. She knows her life, and the secret code is about to be lost. But instead of running, she performs the ultimate act of sacrifice. With lightning speed, she pulls a fragmentation grenade from the unconscious German officer's belt. "Go, Elias!" she screams in perfect English. "Tell them! 057 Alpha Gamma!" She shoves Elias out of the way, directly into the protective shadow of the rock face, and simultaneously drops the pin and rolls the grenade under the German stretcher patrol. The explosion is a sharp, sickening crack, followed by silence. Elias, stunned, scrapes himself up, the ringing in his ears louder than the guns of Bastogne. He sees the smoke, the scattered equipment, and the horrifying finality of her sacrifice. Anya Petrova, the GRU operative, the master spy, had traded her life for the chance to get the code into American hands. The code, 057 Alpha Gamma, is now seared into his memory. He realizes the deeper personal irony. He had spent his career as a sniper, delivering death from a distance, maintaining emotional detachment. But the woman he had saved from the snow, the one he suspected of every possible deception, had not only saved his life multiple times, but had performed the most profound act of self-sacrifice he had ever witnessed. She died not for Russia, not for America, but for the principle of neutralizing a weapon of terror. The path is clear, but the cost is immeasurable. The siege is only meters away now. Elias, broken by the loss and fueled by the secret, runs toward the relentless gunfire of the encircled American stronghold, carrying the code that could change the war and the memory of a love story tragically cut short. Elias runs the last stretch toward the American perimeter like a man possessed, dodging artillery craters and the bodies of the fallen. He crashes into the outer ring of the American defense, a desperate, freezing mix of barbed wire, foxholes, and mud. He is immediately challenged by a young, mud-caked paratrooper. "Friendlies, friendlies, I have vital intelligence. Take me to your command." The paratrooper is skeptical, but the sheer desperation in Elias's face, coupled with his recognizable 101st Airborne insignia, convinces him. They drag the sniper into the main underground bunker, a repurposed wine cellar that now serves as the nerve center for the besieged American forces. He is brought before the commander, a man known for his unflappable calm under fire. Let's call him General McAuliffe's right-hand man, Colonel Reynolds. The scene is one of controlled chaos. Maps spread on wooden crates, field phones ringing incessantly, and the constant thud of shells vibrating through the stone walls. Elias, still covered in snow, mud, and the remnants of the blast, looks less like a reliable intelligence source and more like a man who has finally broken. He is exhausted, traumatized, and carrying the burden of a secret and a sacrifice. "Sergeant," Colonel Reynolds says, his voice calm, cutting through the noise. "State your name, rank, and mission. Quickly." Elias forces the words out, omitting the complex story of Anya's GRU background for the sake of speed and credibility. He presents himself as a sniper, cut off behind enemy lines who encountered a dying French Red Cross nurse. "Sir, she had this. It's a decryption code. She said it's for V2 guidance systems. She died getting it to me. The code is 057 Alpha Gamma." Colonel Reynolds' reaction is immediate skepticism, verging on outright dismissal. "Sergeant, we are under heavy siege. We are fighting tanks with rifles. We are low on ammo, food, and sleep. And you are telling me you brought us a missile code? We deal in inches of mud, not frequencies, son." The colonel's dismissal reflects a profound historical reality. At the tactical level of the siege, technical strategic intelligence was almost meaningless. The immediate priority was survival. But Elias presses the issue, his voice rising, fueled by the memory of Anya's sacrifice. "Sir, a German Abwehr officer, a Colonel Kessel, was personally chasing her. They knew what she had. This isn't just a number, sir. It's the key to an entire German countermeasure program against our jamming." She said it was the core fuel control sequence. Elias adds the critical, undeniable detail. "And she was willing to die for this code. She blew herself up to stop them from getting it back." The sheer dramatic finality of the claim gives Colonel Reynolds pause. The military mind may be skeptical of intelligence, but it recognizes the truth of an extreme sacrifice. Reynolds signals to his communications officer. "Get Major Thompson on the wire. Tell him I have a man here with a decryption sequence. He's a technical liaison back at HQ. Tell him the source is highly unorthodox, but the man's conviction is absolute. Use a secure line and give him the code, 057 Alpha Gamma." While the information is being relayed, the shelling outside reaches a terrifying crescendo. The earth around the bunker shakes violently, and dust falls from the ceiling. A runner bursts into the room, shouting, "Sir, we've taken a direct hit on the motor pool. The line is collapsing near the perimeter church." Reynolds takes the news calmly, addressing Elias one last time before returning to the battle. "Sergeant Vance, you've done your part. Now get some rest. You are back in the line tonight. We'll find out if your Russian ghost saved the world, or if she just gave us a meaningless 5-digit number." The dramatic irony is that Elias, the man who brought the strategic answer, is immediately sent back to the tactical fight. He now carries two burdens: the secret code for a high-tech weapon, and the memory of the woman who died to save it, both of which are irrelevant to the mud and blood he is about to face again. The war's ultimate paradox is that the biggest victories are often secured by those who are completely unaware of their significance. Elias is now one of them. For the next 2 days, the world contracts for Elias Vance into a foxhole, a cold M1 rifle, and the relentless task of holding a small, frozen patch of Belgian earth. He performs his duty with a chilling, mechanical efficiency, his grief for Anya channeled into a terrifying focus. The memory of the code is a constant presence, a silent testament to the larger war being fought far above and beyond the trenches. The siege of Bastogne continues to be a test of endurance and defiance. The famous exchange where General McAuliffe replied, "Nuts," to the German surrender demand has already passed, symbolizing the absolute resolve of the encircled Americans. Elias is an anonymous participant in this historic stand. Then, on the third night, a new sound cuts through the constant thudding of the artillery. The unmistakable roar of Allied fighter bombers. A full air support element, P-47 Thunderbolts and P-51 Mustangs, has finally broken through the persistent cloud cover and the German air defenses. The sight is an injection of pure, electrifying morale. The planes unleash a devastating aerial bombardment on the German positions, systematically tearing apart the German chokehold on the perimeter. But the real turning point is not the visible air support. It happens far away, at the highest levels of Allied command, based on the intelligence Elias delivered. Unbeknownst to Elias, Major Thompson, the technical liaison, quickly recognized the significance of the code. 057 Alpha Gamma was not a V2 launch code, but a critical, multi-spectrum frequency setting for the German guidance telemetry. Thompson and his team, working through the night, used the code to precisely calibrate new electronic countermeasures, ECM, in the British ground-based radar systems. The result is not a spectacular battlefield scene, but a silent, strategic victory. Over the next 24 hours, the previously unstoppable German V-2 rocket attacks against London begin to fail at an exponentially increasing rate. Guided missiles, launched from sites in the Netherlands, suddenly veer off course, plunging harmlessly into the North Sea or detonating prematurely. The Allies, thanks to Anya's sacrifice and Elias's conviction, have suddenly and dramatically countered Hitler's greatest terror weapon. The irony here is historic. The American forces were saved at Bastogne by air support, a tactical necessity. But the strategic threat to the entire Western Alliance was neutralized by a desperate whispered code, carried by a Soviet spy and an American sniper, thousands of miles from the rocket launch sites. The war was won in the trenches and the labs simultaneously. Back in Bastogne, the siege is finally broken. Patton's Third Army, pushing relentlessly from the south, smashes through the German lines, connecting with the exhausted 101st. Relief. The sight of the tanks rolling in, the supply convoys, the faces of fresh, unburdened men. It is a moment of pure, overwhelming emotion. Elias Vance, having survived the impossible, is finally pulled from the line. He is debriefed, his part in the V-2 countermeasure program acknowledged not with a grand announcement, but with a highly classified, discreet interview by agents from the OSS, Office of Strategic Services. He insists on only one thing: confirmation of Anya Petrova's identity and her mission. The OSS, after verifying the strategic impact of the code, provides him with a heavily redacted but definitive file. Anya was indeed a Soviet GRU operative, but she was also part of a small, highly effective joint effort, secretly agreed upon by Stalin and Roosevelt, to combat the V-2, which threatened all Allied capitals. Her official sacrifice, they confirm, was a deliberate, necessary military action. Elias is presented with a citation for the Distinguished Service Cross, not for his sniping kills, but for delivering critical intelligence under extreme duress. The citation makes no mention of the V-2 code or Anya Petrova. It is a necessary historical lie. The true story of the freezing nurse and the sniper is instantly classified, buried in the highest echelons of military intelligence. The great reckoning for Elias is not on the battlefield, but in the quiet, empty space left by Anya. The cold silence of the Ardennes, which once represented the purity of his focus, now represents the pain of a love that was forged in the heat of deception and solidified by the ultimate sacrifice. He delivered the code, but he lost the courier. The strategic war was won, but his personal war ended in tragedy. Spring 1947. Washington, D.C. The war has been over for 2 years, but the Cold War is already beginning to chill the world. Elias Vance, now a decorated veteran struggling to transition back to civilian life, finds that the silence of peace is louder and more challenging than the thunder of the battlefield. The historical irony of his post-war existence is that he is hailed as a hero for his courage in the Battle of the Bulge. But the actual world-saving act he performed, the delivery of the code, is a secret he can never share. He spends his days haunted by the question, what was Anya's true motive? Was it purely duty to the Soviet Union, or was there something deeper, a commitment to a common humanity that superseded the political lines of the Iron Curtain? The answer arrives not in a file, but in a small, unassuming package delivered by a non-military anonymous courier. The package contains 2 items. The first is a copy of a short, non-denominational poem, handwritten in fluent English on brittle wartime paper. It describes the warmth of a fire and the brief, bright connection of 2 souls lost in a terrible winter. It is a clear, final message from Anya, written perhaps in the cellar moments before they broke cover. It confirms the human connection was real, that the feeling he experienced was mutual, even if their relationship was measured only in hours of life-or-death proximity. The second item is a simple, hand-drawn map. It is crudely sketched, but clearly shows the location of the farmhouse where they met, and next to it, a small X, marking a cluster of stones. Elias understands instantly. He travels back to the Ardennes forest in Belgium, now a landscape slowly healing from the war's scars. The farmhouse is a ruin, just as he remembers. He finds the cluster of stones exactly where the map indicated, half covered by the recovering vegetation. Beneath the stones, he finds a small metal case, a German emergency medical kit. Inside, there is one last item, a simple silver locket, the kind given by a mother or grandmother. He opens the locket. On one side is a photograph of a smiling, dark-haired woman, Anya, but younger. Before the war, etched its lines onto her face. On the other side is a tiny, pressed flower, a snowdrop, the first flower to bloom after winter. But etched into the silver casing, in a microscopic script, is the final, ultimate twist. It is a single, clear message in English. The code was real. The love was not the code. I am sorry, E. The historical truth is layered. The code was real. It saved London. But Anya's sacrifice, the grand final gesture, was not just for the GRU or the Allies. It was, in part, a strategic manipulation to ensure Elias, the man she knew was incorruptible, would deliver the intelligence out of a sense of personal obligation and emotional conviction. She used the nascent love they shared as the final guarantee for the mission's success. It was the ultimate, necessary betrayal of the heart for the benefit of global security. For Elias, the pain is complicated. He was used, but the mission he completed saved thousands. The wartime romance, the adventure in the snow, the shared moments of terror. It all culminated not in a shared future, but in a piece of historical espionage that proved that even in the greatest conflict, human emotion could be leveraged for the highest strategic goal. The love story was a weapon. Elias Vance, the American sniper, never spoke of the V2 code or Anya Petrova. He carried the truth of their brief, intense journey to his grave. But the silence over London, the thousands of lives saved, and the subtle, permanent shift in the strategic balance of the early Cold War, that is their enduring, unacknowledged legacy. The story of the freezing nurse and the honest sniper became a legendary rumor in the shadowy world of military intelligence. A testament to the fact that the most powerful weapons in any conflict are not always steel and fire, but trust, deception, and the fleeting, desperate connection between two human beings trapped in the heart of history. Thank you for watching this deep dive into the concealed history of the Second World War. If these untold stories of human connection, strategic complexity, and technological warfare intrigue you, please remember to like this video, share it with fellow history enthusiasts, and of course, hit that subscribe button for more meticulously researched historical narratives.